Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Earth Medicine Podcast with Selin. I am so delighted to have Felicia here with me. She is a numerologist, a certified pranic healer. She also has a book about numerology, and it's a longer title, but it's like wildly redesigning your life. Can you share that actually?
Yeah, it's redesign your life using numerology to create the wildly optimal you. That's the subtitle.
I
But
love it. I can't wait to read that. Yes,
yeah,
and you have two more books coming out in 2018.
correct.
I found your work through AstroStyle, which is an awesome astrology site. I highly recommend going there to really explore so much about astrology, but you also contribute to the Numinous, the Elephant Journal, and several other very popular publications. So
Mhm.
it really is an honor and a privilege to have you here, Felicia. So
Well,
welcome.
it's a pleasure. Thank you for asking. It's going to be a fun day.
Yeah, it is. So you have a very, very powerful story about how you got to numerology.
Mm.
And I would love for you to share the piece about where you like how you why it was numerology for you that really stood out, you think, and kind of like where you were and you found this book in the bookstore. Can you share a little bit about your history and how you came to numerology?
Well, absolutely, because it's weird, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, like everyone's story about where they, their strange twists and turns that get them where they are. Suddenly you look around and you're like, what? Yeah, you know. Years ago, you go, well, I would never. I don't know if you would ever envision yourself doing a podcast about,
No.
yeah, no. So it'll be another interview to hear how you got there.
Totally.
And yet in that regard, I mean, I was, as I got married young. I had children. I was living an academic life with my husband. And yet there was some kind of underlying malaise for me, and just feelings of not being purposeful and not living my fullness, the way that I wanted to even. And so during this time, my mother, who I was very close to for a while when I was younger, and she was really suffering from alcoholism, from some other addictive tendencies, and the short story around that is that she really started to disintegrate, as
Mhm.
people do when they go down this rabbit hole, right?
Mhm.
And I loved her very much. And speaking of astrostyle, I'm a Cancer, so my relationship with my mother is important to
Mm.
me. In
Mhm.
any event, I got a phone call that she was in the hospital with an inoperable brain tumor due to lung cancer. And at that time, about 6 months prior, she had stopped talking to me, like she had stopped talking to several family members. And, everyone's family's got their issues, right? So in any event, after her death, it was just this really deep moment of, like, what is this about?
Mhm.
What's going on with me? It really cracked me right open. And it was my early 30s. And I was really at this place where I call it where I started my spiritual gauntlet, that I really wasn't into it all. And this just really pushed me into that deep, dark place where I was like, I've got to not figure it out, but open myself up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's when I studied pranic healing. I took in every book, every class, everything that I could about energy, about herbs, about, intuition, psychic work, all that stuff. And even though I'm kind of this practical gal, so I'm one of those people who's like, yeah, I want all this information, but show me the money, right? Show me how it works.
Totally. Totally.
So I was going along. I finally got a divorce. We moved. Had different aspects. So it wasn't like a lightning bolt, right? It wasn't.
Mhm.
Everyone is always like, I want the big thing.
Totally.
It's
Yes.
like, no, you don't. No, you don't want that. Because I don't know if you've ever known. I actually know someone who was struck by lightning, and she lived to tell about it. But you don't want that. Believe me, that changes your life forever. So what happened was my daughter was in college, struggling with trying to decide on a major, that sort of thing. I was walking through a bookstore, and the story you're referring to is like this book flies out, right? You're in Barnes and Noble or wherever it is, and flies off the shelf. I'm sure everyone's had that happen.
Mhm.
And it was a book not about numerology, mind you, because I would never, ever,
Right.
like ever pick up a book on numerology, because my sidebar is I hate math more than any human can. It was my worst subject in school. It gave me hives to think about it because it stressed me out so much. So numbers have never resonated with me on that. I just didn't get the whole math thing, algebra, like what the heck is this? So it's just a cruel cosmic joke, actually, that I do this now, like with this passion, and I can't stop. And so this book had something. It was about a career. It was a career book, and it talked about a little bit of numerology. So I could do that in spoon feeding, little baby. But it was, for me, it was that structured element that I needed, because I always knew I was highly intuitive, but I wasn't someone who could give you a psychic reading, in that way, or whatever. And so I was looking for my tool. I was really searching for that thing that would be the way that I would structure something. And numerology ended up being that thing, because it's this beautiful ancient science and art that you don't have to sit and ohm in a cave like for centuries before you can get the information's there. You just get the book off the shelf and look it up, and you can immerse yourself as much or as little as you want, but it's a guiding post for everyone who it resonates with. And it's super cool because, again, you can get a reading, or you could pull it out when you're kind of struggling or whatever, and then you can remember a year later, oh yeah, and pull it out again. So it's a tool that that I find that is so strangely accurate. I mean, everyone, even non-believers, are kind of like, well, how'd you know that? It's like, oh, well, it's all in the numbers, So it's a very intriguing tool. So I just took off with it. I'm one of those people, once I find something that I know that I want to immerse, I do. And I really adore this. It is a beautiful, again, art and science that can trigger your intuitive abilities, and really get you into these wonderful ways of seeing your own life, and then also engaging with people in your life on a totally different level. It really kind of releases, again, the one thing that it did for me with my mother, for instance, was it allowed me a space of forgiveness there for not only her and the feelings I had around her, and anger and resentment in many ways about things that weren't going to happen, and all of those things that go through your head when you lose a parent who was 59. And yet it offered space for me too, because I find that mostly we need to forgive ourselves,
Yes.
Right? We're hardest on ourselves.
Yes.
So it gave me a window of opportunity to do that. But that's the basic story around that. And then I just, it really guides everything in my life in a funny, kind of fun way, actually.
So beautiful. And I want to unpack a few things that you said in there. And first I want to actually ask a question that I have been asked too. When I remember a few years ago, I first was like, oh, numerology, this is so cool. And I looked at my life path number, all this. And someone had asked me, well, numbers were, made up by, like in a certain time period. And I get that, but then inherently within nature, there is numbers as well. Really, can you speak to a little bit about the history of numerology and how it's like validated by nature itself?
Well, I don't know if I can really give you that overall answer, but yet I will say The intriguing aspect is that, and the way I like to just define it for those of you out there who, it's like, what is numerology? You've never really heard of it.
Yes.
There are, there's the basic component is what I use, and what most of us use in the Western world comes from Pythagoras. I don't know if you're paying attention in math class with the Pythagorean theorem of geometry and all of that, but he's that guy. He was a Greek mystic. He was a scientist. He was also into music and sound. As part of, what he did, he was into the planets and how they affect. So he would have been a kind of intriguing guy to have a cocktail with.
Yes, no kidding.
I don't know. He may have been a little too out there, but he really was this philosopher and mystic. And basically, we use his concepts. There are other forms of numerology, Vedic numerology, Chaldean. So there's all kinds of, just like there are different, offshoots of all kinds of ologies, right? So same with numerology. And yet the one that I use and that most people use in this country comes from Pythagoras. And it basically, the very simple thing about it is that he just, the basic component, the basic idea is that numbers carry with them not only a quantitative value, like, 1 apple, 2 apples, so on, but it also these numbers 1 through 9 also carry with them a frequency, right? And a vibration. And that frequency and vibration carries with it data. It carries information. And so it's kind of cool to be in this time frame in our world, because in some stretch of our brains, we can conceptualize as we think about quantum physics and all of those elements that are becoming more looked at as real in the science world, right? We always have to kind of catch up with ourselves somehow. It's the same thing. We can look at like it's like the cloud. Like, what is that? Right? It carries, like, where is it? And how does it get all that data? It's like gravity. We don't have to believe that gravity exists, but it's still
That's right.
We're not float. Just because I say I don't believe in gravity doesn't mean that I'm going to start floating up in the air. And and it's cell phone reception, that sort of thing. How does
the internet actually work?
How does it work? And it does, and it has bits and bytes, and it's doing all of this stuff all this time, and it's information data. And that is what Pythagoras said. He said, we all come in, all people, with what I call a numerological matrix. It is our blueprint. That's what most numerologists will phrase it that way. It's a blueprint for what we came in to do, how we're going to do it. It gives us really strong indicators of cycles of time, different elements that we will be challenged with. It's like it gives us I like to say it's kind of like Morse code. So you walk into a room, right, and da 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 da, and you and I would be like, so what? But someone who knows Morse code, right?
Yes. What a great analogy.
Yeah, they're getting the info, right?
Yeah. That's right.
And so it's like when you know numerology, you're getting the data, right? You're getting the info through the code. And that is basically what it boils down to, is when you understand the basic defining qualities that come with the numbers, in my opinion, you can plug it in wherever you see it. It's just, and again, you can be a beginner level or you could be an advanced, so it depends on how serious you are about it, but you can use it, because a lot of people, it's not only with us as individuals, we can look at it wherever numbers show up. A lot of people are very into seeing repeating numbers. 1111 is the big one, that everyone sees. But all of these repeating numbers have a message.
Yes.
And isn't that fun to think?
I have to Google it, because sometimes it's to the point where I'm like, okay, I am getting a message here. I'll get the 333 and the 444. It is crazy. And so and I really, people listening, it's not some random coincidence that these things keep showing up. And, and even with our life path number, for example, I mean, my life path number is a 9, and and so it wouldn't make sense for me, I mean, necessarily to be like in an accountant, position where, for example, where I'm with computers and numbers, though I could, I mean, obviously you could have it like a humanitarian approach to that in whatever way, but I'm really seeing me understanding that help me understand my desires and ambitions more, and help me actually validate them, like you speak of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can you speak a little bit more about life path numbers for those who have, again, first time hearing numerology, and how they can actually choose a career and a lifestyle based on that alone?
Absolutely, on that alone. And also what I like to also observe is that the second number you would know is like, it's called the expression number or the destiny number. It comes from the name, so we won't really go over that because that's a little more complicated to talk about. But that also is a very good indicator. So for you as a 9 life path, then I would want to know in your chart what your expression or your destiny was, because that's going to give you the manner in which you're going to express.
I think it's a 5.
So that's great. So when I see that together, it's like two, it's the yin to the yang, and it's like, I always kind of look at it like, mixing a martini or something, you one part life path, one part expression, does me shake or stir, and you get this more holographic vision. So for you as a 5, what you're doing, I don't know what you do, across the board, but doing these sorts of different things, because you're going to do something with the humanitarian focus, and you're going to do it as the freedom seeker, right? The one who's doing it for fun, very progressive thought and action, all of those things. So it really is an interesting avenue to look at how it all, it's like a puzzle, you start looking at how it comes into play, how it speaks to each other, where the opposition is, and where it flows. So it's pretty good to know about yourself. You're like, oh yeah, that's why I do that.
It's so great. It's so great, because otherwise, then like if we're not so in tune with ourselves and our desire and these tools, then we will be run by, what the outside world is telling us.
Yeah, exactly. From that static, right? We can't just get through the static. So to go back to your question about the life path, that is basically, it's like knowing your sun sign in astrology, right? It's the same sort of thing. So, so the life path, in my opinion, is what we checked in to do. It's your life's purpose. So it's like you're on the other side and you're like, hey, this looks good. I haven't done that. I haven't signed up for this class yet,
Right.
So you come in with this life path with innate gifts and talents, right? And yet, because it takes a lifetime to engage with your life path, you're going to come with some more intense or, heightened stumbling blocks to get you there, right? So, and what I love about that is understanding. So for you, you may have an issue with, I don't know, with blah, blah, blah. And someone else is like, what is her problem? That is so easy. But you're like, for you, that's a major component for your thematic, right? So I look at it as kind of understanding the themes, understanding the optimal elements of that, and then understanding the tendencies, obstacles, and the major points of that you will work with all your life, that all of us will, just because of our life path. So to understand your life path, all you need to know is your birth date. Okay. And like all other ologies, everyone has a different way of doing things. So you can, depending on how you, what your belief system is. And I'm of the school to understand your options, try it out, and see what resonates with you. Okay? But on the basic level, that let's just take the birthday, and I'll tell you how to do it the proper way. The way that I've been taught is the proper way. So you take your month. Do you mind using your birth date?
Let's do it. Yeah, okay, it's so November 14th.
So November 14th, and then the year?
1991.
So you would take the November, and that's an 11, right? So that's an 11. So you take the 14. Okay, so we're going to segment it out, a month, day, year.
Okay.
All right. So some people will add it all together, like one long math problem. And so Dan Millman, I don't know if anyone is interested in some extracurricular reading, but his book called The Life You Were Born to Live is very engaging, and he uses that long version to get to a 2-digit. So it depends on how in depth you want to get and what your belief system is around it. And, but for you, it's November is an 11. 14, and I'm going to go back to the 11 in just a second.
Sure.
14, so in numerology, we always have to keep in mind that we're always reducing to the end goal is to reduce to a 1-digit number.
Yes.
At all times, okay? So you take the 14, and then you add that together. The 1 plus 4 equals 5. So that is a 5. Then you take the 1991, 1 plus 9 equals 10. 10 plus 9 equals 19, plus 1 equals 20, okay? And that people get confused here. It always sounds so easy, but then you start doing it, and you're like, how do you So the 20, you still add that together. So the 2 plus 0 equals 2, okay? So in this scenario, and I'm glad this is your birthday because the 11 is a master number. Okay, the master numbers are the repeating numbers, 11, 22, 33, and so on. And yet, for the purposes of chart reading and that sort of thing, we really only focus on the 11, 22, and sometimes the 33. So many numerologists, and this is how I've been taught, never reduce a master number when it shows up.
Wow. Okay, great.
Okay, some people do. So depending on your school of thought, your 11 can be an 11, or as the November, or it can be a 2. But let's just keep it as an 11. The end number will be the same. It's just the intermediary, and again, how detailed you want to get before you.
Beautiful. I like the detail with this stuff.
I know, but some people on the other end listening to this are like, okay, it's a little too much for me. They're like, just give me the basics. So let's do 11 plus 5. So that's 16. So that's 16. And then you add that 11 plus 5 is 16. So that's a 7. And then you add the 2, 7, 8, 9, and you're a 9 life path. Okay. And you discussed that before, but that's how you get to it.
Very beautiful. Thank you for outlining.
Yeah. So those out there, just, do your own number, and it's 1 through 9, unless it's the double digit, which is the 11, 22, or 33, which you can also get as a life path number as well.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
And that's a whole other, I actually am finishing a book right now on the master numbers, 11, 22.
I saw that. That is brilliant. And
well, people really are intrigued about what those bring to the party, so. Absolutely.
And I think we're seeing more and more of these master numbers as well. And whether it was these are technically not master numbers in the 3-digit, I believe, whether it's in the 222 for timing, but these are essential things to start to notice. And I really want to bring to light that there is a reason that we are seeing more of this, that we're seeing more even sacred geometry awareness. And really with the numbers as well. I was super against numbers growing up. Math was my worst subject as well. And I have grown to love numerology and looking at my name, looking at other aspects as well. And I know with a numerologist, you can go deeper and deeper with it, such as yourself, obviously. And what I love is, you mentioned about seeing someone else's life path and seeing the themes that they might be dealing with. Is this what you saw with your mom and your daughters and your former husband?
Yes.
That helped you understand them better, didn't it?
Absolutely. And what I love, super love about it is that it gives you that it allows you that sort of Buddhist healthy emotional detachment. It allows you to detach and realize that everyone is here on their path. And And that while we are engaged with that and are part of that in some way, we are not it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And usually we all, even though it sounds kind of silly to say it out loud, I do believe that most of us still feel like people should behave the way we behave, think the way we think, do things the way
Absolutely.
we do it. And when they don't, it frustrates us, right? Or it makes us angry. And so suddenly I'm looking at these people and I'm like, well, of course that's what they're doing. Why wouldn't they, And so it really offers an allowance there for you to really get that you don't, it's so freeing to just go, I don't need to even mess around with that anymore, with thinking that I need to change them, because, and if you think about it also, they're the ones wanting to change you.
Yeah.
And does that work?
No. No.
Never.
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 You either learn that the hard way or just look at someone's numerology chart, right?
Right. Or a combination thereof. Yeah. And it is wonderful in terms of, I also really enjoy knowing people's personal year numbers. So that's another a very easy element to know about people and to know about yourself. I find it very valuable. I have a place on my website where you can go and get almost like a monthly horoscope. It's
beautiful.
Yeah, it's a monthly. And so I get down, so you have to know your personal year number, and then your month is based on that. But it's so fun to know, and I call it seriously knowing the theme to your party, because we go in numerology, we believe we go through 9-year cycles throughout our lives. And this was a big deal for me when I found out about numerology, was really digging in. I went back and did my whole life.
Wow.
Through personal year cycles, and every single transition from the end of a cycle to a new one was like a huge punctuation mark in my life. That's when I graduated. That's when I had my first child. That's when my mother died. That's when I got a divorce. And so it's so valuable, I find, for people, for me to know what mine is, obviously, but for me to know where my family is, where my friends are, because it helps me support them.
I'm getting shivers in my body right now, and it's so brilliant. Actually, when I read your article for December, my personal month is a 2. So that is with family. That is taking time and actually seeing them at the end of this month, and seeing this. Knowing this, I actually get to put my focus on it rather than be resisting it the whole time.
Isn't it beautiful? It's like, oh my gosh, it's better. It's just better than anything. Just to give ourselves that permission slip, right? And to know, because we always think that we should be doing what we aren't doing. And when we're doing that, we should be doing the other thing, right?
100%. And this is why, like, honestly, since this is tracing back a few years when I was dabbling in numerology, but why I'm so, such an advocate for people working with you and really understanding their charts. And I'd love to actually know what you based on numerology too for 2018, what people can expect. I know it's also a year too, isn't it?
It is, and yet it is a master number 11.
Is it?
Yes, it is. Get ready to rumble.
How perfect with the times too.
Oh, how perfect with the times. It is actually quite perfect with the times. And it's intriguing because on that realm, the master, I consider like the universal year. So you get that number by adding together the year. So 2018 equals 11, 2 plus 0 plus 1 plus 8. Okay. So it's 11, and some people write it the 11-2, or some people just say an 11. And so the master numbers, just the brushstroke on them is that they carry with them a spiritual purpose, no matter how you might personally define that, right? And everyone is different. So it's a higher calling. In some capacity. So that's the energy there. And it's also when it's the master numbers offer higher potentials and also more intense challenges.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom line really is, it is not easy when you're dealing with a master number, whether it's in your chart, whether it's in a cycle, whether it's, so we are all in the world. If you believe in numerology and this is your gig, we are all going to be infused with this energy. I call it's kind of like the umbrella energy.
Mm.
And then the energy that right is under that is the personal year that you feel much more intensely. It's much more up close and personal. And yet the universal year is it's like that gel in the petri dish, right? It's the, did you ever do that in science lab? Have the little petri dish with that, whatever that is in there? Whatever that substance is in there. So it's like that. And the 11 the 11 is the number of spiritual illumination. It is the spiritual messenger. It is also, in numerology, most people will agree that it is the dreamer rather than the doer, right?
Mm-hmm.
The 22-4 is the doer. The 11, the 22, the 11-2 is the dreamer. So you've got it's a channel. And that the energy there is very high frequency. And it is, again, the foundational energy. So what you need to understand about the master numbers is that they're inherently in opposition or in conflict with themselves.
Interesting.
So whenever you're working with a master number, you're going to feel this anxiety, low or high level, depending on how it's affecting you. There's always going to be this nervous tension. It's always going to be a lot. It's just a lot of energy. And the 11-2 is the interesting aspect is it's kind of like a sandwich cookie, right? You've got the 2 1s and then the soft gooey 2 center, right? So, and of all these master numbers, the 11-2 is the most oppositional because the 1 and the 2 really don't get each other.
Wow.
So you've got the double 1 with the 2, and they're in partnership, right? But they're kind of these strange, awkward siblings because the 1 is let's go with the 2 first, because that's the foundational energy. Very briefly, the 2 is the number of us. It's the number of love, partnership. It is diplomacy, mediation. It's the peacekeeper, the peace seeker. It is emotion. It is intuitive. It's super sensitive to the point of just a little too much, right? So you've got that, and it's the number of patience, capital P, which we know everyone loves.
Right.
Practicing patience. It is a virtue somewhere, but we're all like, no, not today, not today, not now. So that's the 2. And then you've got the double 1, which is all about me, all about leadership, innovation, individuality, achievement, making it happen. The 2, so it's a very masculine energy, and the 2 is a very feminine energy. So they are literally kind of this interesting yin yang.
Wow.
And yet it can be a very oppositional time, because there's the part where it's like you've got to make things in an 11-2, you've got to make things happen. You're still doing that, and yet you've got to understand and be very highly intuitive when to back off, when to allow things to fall into place. Because often if you push in a 2 year, you're not going to get anywhere, because it's all about divine timing. It's all about right timing. I'm sure you've experienced in your life when you try something, you push, and it just,
it's the craziest thing. I'm learning between like when I actually like go for it and, have the yang energy, and other times I'm not going for it and it just comes to me. I'm like, what?
Yeah, I like this easy part, the part where it all just kind of falls into place. And so the energy of the universal year is going to be a little skitsy. in that way. And then also, yet it is, if we can slow down enough, if we can open ourselves, this is when the magic happens, because it is, again, that number of spiritual illumination. And when I say that in numerology, the way to think about it is the energy supports that during that time. Right? It is supportive of anything that you can do. Again, slowing down, like you were talking about, just in this time generally, to notice. How many people do you know who don't notice a doggone thing during the day because their faces are in their phones and their whatever else, you know?
You know, and I think with this 11/11 energy too, it's like either you understand what's actually happening, or there's even further confusion. And this is so like adamant about having this kind of information out there. And to make a note on the two as well, where even intuitively I feel more drawn for collaboration, for community more than ever. And that's also
perfect point. Absolutely. That's very highlighted during that time. Yeah.
Right, because one is right, the leadership, the initiation, like we're talking about. And so it's moving from, like, I mean, even myself, I've noticed this in myself, this lone wolf mentality, like, I got this, to, okay, how can I, it's easier for me to be, like, do the alone thing. But now the next, like, process, the ascension is about community. So how brilliant to know this, Felicia. Thank you for explaining 2018 in that way, so we can actually work with it rather than resisting.
Yeah, rather than against it. And the overall thematic, I would say, if I have to choose one thing, is love. Because the two is about love. And I feel personally that is a huge concept and reality that we are facing right now, right? I mean, just overall, do we choose love or hate?
Yes.
Do we choose together or separate? Do we choose conquer or work with? Do we, you know, right?
Yeah.
These are very in our face, up close and personal on a macro and a micro level. We're all going to be doing it in the world because it's all being demanded of us now because of our where we have placed ourselves.
Yes.
and then also it's in our it comes down to our selves, how we do this on our individual personal level. And this year is a year where I would, that there will be a lot of triggers and treasures there. Right?
Yes. And it really is more important now than ever to have these set of tools in our toolkit. You know, I really have been sensing the changes, especially in the beginning of the year. And I realized that like my personal basic level of the self-care and the exercise, the movement, the nutrition, all of that is great. But the next level is actually using tools such as these to actually guide us and say, okay, I get myself, and have compassion, forgiveness, like you were speaking of, and that of others. And I actually had never even thought of using my, numerology charts to understand others, and what a gift that is. So thank you for illuminating me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I just love it. It's so fantastic because it gives me it is like, Strengths Finder, 800.0 from the soul. You don't need to answer all those billions of questions. You just need your birth date and your name, Yeah.
And that's beautiful. And so how can people really find out more of the work that you do? What do you offer to people? And where can they find you?
They can find me most available on FeliciaBender.com. So it's FeliciaBender.com. Lots of stuff there. I've got articles. I've got a YouTube channel that you can go to and see some videos. It's really nice to just have that. If you're not, someone who loves to read, you can see the video. I've got the one book that you can order from there, 2 other books that are coming our way in 2018. So I think it is a time where we're all hungry for more depth and more meaning. And and more feeling on purpose, really, in our existence here. I mean, I really find that it is the people who are listening with you are in this the dividing line, right? There's the other people who are going just so on the other end, la 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 la. I want everything to be the same, even though it's the same is not anything that ever was, all of that.
Yeah.
And then there are the rest of us, which I feel personally optimistic and hopeful that it is the lion's share of all of us and in humanity, have humanity and want to bring this, because we are being forced into, I think you would agree, this blurring line with all of our technology and everything else about countries and where we, where we're placed in the world, and that it is the butterfly effect. Everything that we do has an effect on everything and on everyone. And we're seeing that much more than we have, just because we can see things that we haven't seen, right? You can see videos and everything of stuff that you would never see in 15 years ago,
And that's the beautiful thing, and like really noticing the duality more and more, so we can come to the non-duality.
Right.
Right.
It's that beauty, and that's really it's a theme for, or something I really talk about in this Master Numbers book, because when you have the Master Numbers, it's even more intense, because you are dealing with this really oppositional energies. But to learn how to even go beyond that, to see how they aren't oppositional, it all simply is, right?
Yes.
Not to get too Yoda on you or anything.
No, I mean, it's brilliant because these are conversations that matter, conversations that really bring light to what's going on. So I honor you. I honor the work that you do in the world, and I'm so grateful. And those who are listening, I know will speak on behalf, because I do get the messages of like, oh my God, thank you. And
thank you.
So,
and you, because you're spreading the word, and getting out all of this information, because these are tools, we spoke about. And it's not just a tool, but it is a tool that
absolutely
we can use in tandem, and they can become very powerful and so life-changing, really, just shifting us internally and externally. So
that's right. They're allies, and when we bring them to light, it's like, oh yeah, okay, now I know this, and now I know this, and we're become empowered. It's just like we walk this life powerfully when we have these tools. And so thank you for really spending the time to be with me and us really on the show. And I'll post the links in the comments below. And thank you so much.
Thank you. It was just so much fun and so good to meet you. Keep doing your amazing work.
Thank you.
All right.
You.